Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever this video finds you, I hope you're having a rad time. I'm the Figure Dude, and on today's figure showcase, we have not a group, really the only thing that relates to these guys is they're all customs and they're all of AEW wrestlers. And actually, now that I say that, they're not even all AEW wrestlers, but they have all appeared on AEW. Without further ado, let's talk about some figures, dude. Welcome back. Like I said, today I've got a bunch of AEW customs that I was just kind of looking at my shelf, realizing there's nothing that really ties them to each other than their appearance on AEW TV, or like their pay-per-view. You'll see I've got a couple guys who have had ties to AEW but have never been contracted AEW wrestlers. So first off here, everyone's favorite Danhausen. As I record this, I do not have, no one does. His unmatched figure, I think it is not out. And even so, that unmatched figure is in his, jacket, which I saw a lot of people bagging on it. I won't say too much. I'll say it was what I expected. I don't love it. I don't think it's as awful as some people have said, but you never know. Once you get things in hand, it might feel different. You might think differently. So I'll hold off on judgment before I get to check that out in person. But my custom here is, I think I've said before, one of my favorite customs I've done. It was a lot of fun to do. Danhausen is just a cool looking guy, character. He's got a bunch of tattoos. The tattoos are always really fun to apply. I gave him double jointed arms. I gave him small. They're like, I think I used like a Neville figure, Elite 50, 55 maybe. I don't remember. It was the superhero, the purple Neville, that we had. So he had black legs. I gave him Cesaro lower legs. Gave him some sneakers instead of like the normal wrestling shoes to give him a little bigger foot, because he kind of wears like boots. And then like the whole decal set was from Curb Stomp. I know 3XR Studio also has some Danhausen tattoos and tights designs, I believe. And then the head's from House 14. I think it's the only head I know. I see him sell them quite a bit, but I'm pretty sure this is the only scan that he has of Danhausen. And I know other people do too, but mine's from House 14. Great guy. He does a lot of good stuff. And I don't know what else to say about Danhausen. Danhausen's funny. I enjoy him. I know, like, funny wrestling's not everyone's cup of tea, but I enjoy Danhausen. I think he's goofy. I think he's fantastic. And I can't have Danhausen without Hook. So, let's get to Hook. Okay, so here we go. We have Hook, and even though they never really did anything together, Hook and Danhausen are just always going to be etched in my mind, because when Danhausen kind of started doing stuff, he just kind of hung out with Hook, and it was a thing for a little bit that it turned into nothing. But in my head, they're always going to be like linked together in that facet. I made their customs around the same time too, so even though they have basically no ties to each other, I always think of Hook and Danhausen together. And we are, again, and they're getting a 2-pack together, I'm pretty sure, on Amazon. I needed Hook in my collection. I had a head scan, so this is, again, another head scan from House 14. Painted it up, and I wasn't, like, dying to have Hook, because I knew we'd get an AEW figure, but as soon as I got the head scan, I was like, well, what the heck, here we go. I made him in just his normal green attire. I used Stone Cold, the jeans mold, for the legs, and then I just had some Tully Blanchard lower legs with the white boots. It's obviously all painted up, the crotch pieces from one of the Usos figures, so that it gave enough room so that the paint wasn't rubbing. Double jointed arms, got all his tattoos on there, and he's got a bunch of tattoos as well, but they're mostly just like lines, outlines, like nothing crazy like Danhausen does. But still, this one was a lot of fun to put together, especially having him next to Taz. I needed a hook to round out Team Taz, even though they're long gone as well. But then I think if you follow me on Instagram, you saw I did post Hook and Taz together. Pretty sure. Go check it out. I don't remember. Anyway, there's my Hook. We've got some more, and like I said, these guys have nothing to do with each other other than being related to AEW. So we've got quite the mix coming up. Next up here is the King of Television. We've got Samoa Joe. And this is one of my few customs that I've used a Jazzwares body for. I used one of the Miros, and one of the first Miro figures we got, or not one of, the first Miro figure we got when he had blonde hair and the camo. If I'm going to be honest, that figure sucked. I hated that figure. I don't love this Samoa Joe necessarily. I like the legs. I think the legs are nice for him. The range of motion for these Miro legs isn't great, but I think the legs work well. The torso works well, I think, for this custom, but the arms are just so long. I don't know why, like, Jazzwares proportions are just odd. I know I'm used to Mattel, so, like, I won't hate on it too much. Like, Jazzwares scale is just a little bit different, but the arms almost go to the knees. Like, they're gigantic. It kind of works on the second Miro figure they made, and like the size of the head on Joe covers it up a little bit. Really, I just seen a few people do this, and I had the pieces, I had the extra Miro, so I went ahead and I made that Samoa Joe. I think we're gonna get a Samoa Joe. I think he's been announced. I don't remember. They announced a bunch of AEW stuff so long ago that I don't remember exactly, but I assume Joe is someone we would get. I'm interested to know what torso choice, what parts they use for him. They're not afraid to use one molds with some of their wrestlers, but I don't know. I'm happy. This Joe works for me for now in my collection. So we've got a couple others that are the ones that I've been talking about that are not necessarily AEW wrestlers, but guys I wanted in my collection for different reasons. Next up is Nick Aldous, and you might know him from TNA. What was his name? Magnus, I think. He was in TNA for a long time. That's where he kind of built his name, and then he wrestled the Indies for a bit, and then he last was in NWA, and he was NWA champ for quite a while. That's kind of like who I associate with that. With this era of NWA, with that brand, but he left on kind of weird terms, and I don't think he's signed anywhere currently. There's been rumors about him going to WWE and AEW naturally, but I attended the original All In event in Chicago and saw Nick Aldis and Cody Rhodes wrestle for the NWA belt, and at the time it was just something I went because I knew Okada was going to be there, and I didn't think I'd ever get another chance to see Okada, and it turns out I saw a lot of guys that I probably won't see again unless they're in WWE and happen to tour through Kansas again. But I wanted a Nick Aldis in my collection. The head scan for this is pretty big. I'm trying to remember. I know I just saw, 3XR Studio just did a Nick Aldis custom. I don't remember where he got the head from, but that's a head scan worth looking into. It'll just look a lot better size-wise, but this is based off that pay-per-view. It says National Treasure on the tights, so it's the dealer on the back, and not a huge name. Probably not someone that people are like dying to have, but like I said, I like filling out my rosters. It was a cool time at All In, and I wanted him represented in my collection for that. So a couple more guys to move on to here. This next guy has had quite the 2020. He had a pretty big 2022, I'll say, but definitely not someone we're gonna get an action figure of. Next up is Nick effing Gage, the one of the most notable deathmatch wrestlers, and a guy that I don't know how we would ever get a figure of him. Maybe like Zombie Sailor Toys, like one of those smaller companies that doesn't have to worry about offending anyone necessarily. Nick Gage, like I said, I had some figures in here that were kind of tied to AEW, and he had his one match against Jericho. He cut his head with a pizza cutter, which is his thing. But the higher-ups at TNT did not like that, especially since... And I think Pizza Hut, I think they pissed off Pizza Hut because Pizza Hut's ad flashed on the screen while he was using a pizza cutter on Jericho's forehead. So I don't think we're getting an AEW figure. I got the head from House 14, and I thought, what the heck, I need to add Nick Gage to my collection. He doesn't really have like a shelf. Like, he has a spot on the shelf. He's on my shelf, but like I don't really have like a GCW section. I will probably make a Matt Cardona figure. I'll just put those two next to each other. But Nick Gage really blew up in 2022. Just I think Matt Cardona going to GCW and kind of giving that some spotlight. Nick Gage is kind of, I mean, with social media, anyone can gain some buzz, gain some momentum, and last year just happened to be Nick Gage's year for that. I got this shirt from Threadhead Customs. I did decide to go a little bit different route with his attire, so he's been wrestling a long time, and he's a deathmatch guy. He's not a sports entertainer, so he doesn't have a bunch of these crazy attires, but I went ahead, I gave him the longer jean shorts, and most people, the customs they use the camo, John Cena shorts, and then they give him he's got the sneakers, paint the legs black, and and then they got the shirt. So really, I think most of the customs I've seen have been spot on, but I just didn't want to make one that looked like everyone else's, so I went a little bit different. I gave him a thicker torso, and then the long jeans, but then I took the shoes from a Defining Moment Cena. They're a little bit bigger, just like a little bit bigger sneaker mold, painted the soles to look a little bit different, but nothing too crazy to it. Just kind of a character that not a lot of people have in their collection outside of like customizing, so I wanted to add him. I have one more figure for today's showcase, and this one just cracks me up. Last but not least, I couldn't have an AEW figure showcase without Tony Khan. So I got this. This is one of the first head scans that I got. I bought a bundle from I don't know if it was just like some extras that House 14 had. I got an Owen Hart head. It was like one of my first ever figure find episodes. I got this Tony Khan. I got Owen Hart. Disco Inferno maybe, I don't even remember, but I got this Tony Khan. I didn't know if I was going to do anything with it, but as I've been going, I've been making more customs. I've been like making some deeper cut characters. I thought, what the heck, we can piece some stuff together for Tony Khan, and here he is. So this one's got sunglasses on. I had this torso. It's the Michael Cole Build-A-Figure torso. I don't have any other Michael Cole pieces, but I did have other Build-A-Figure pieces, so just gave him a suited body. I put on some white boots, or like some white shoes, because when I think of Tony Khan, I think of more like his big coat and his red cup, but I didn't have stuff to do that, so gave him more like a leisurely pair of shoes there. And nothing too crazy, really just the head on the Build-A-Figure body, but I had to have this on my shelf. I think it's funny. I'm shocked we haven't gotten like a ringside exclusive Tony Khan or something. I can see that happening down the line, especially with Jazzwares and Jeremy Padower and Tony Khan, who's just a huge wrestling fan, mark, whatever, in and of itself. But I'm gonna get those guys up here, get everyone up here, take a look at everyone together, and we'll get out of here. Alright, so that's going to wrap everything up for today. Like I said, we had AEW and Friends today. Some fun customs, some figures that I'm looking forward to get official releases of some, and then others that you never know. You never know how things are going to go in wrestling. But that's going to wrap things up. Please like, share, subscribe. I always appreciate it. If you're enjoying what we do here at the showcases, go check out a few more of them. I've got a bunch now. You can go and check out a bunch of customs that I like to show off, and plenty more to come. But if nothing else, today remember, you can't buy happiness, but you can buy figures. Figure Dude out.